right, good evening. Mark, sure appreciate you leading songs tonight and choosing a few that I didn't know very well. There's something about singing that gets it kind of in us different. And to be able to sing songs that we don't normally get to is really a gift. Even if we struggle with some of them, at least I did on some of it, trying to learn it, singing it is so good. So what a gift. Thank you for doing that tonight. No surprise, we're still going to be in Genesis talking about lessons from the life of Jacob, but we are nearing the end. Okay, so there's hope. We're getting close. The focus has shifted in this part of the story, and it's really about Joseph. And most of the teaching that happens on this section of Genesis gets focused in on Joseph. My own reading of Genesis has been focused on Joseph at this point. And so as much as I kind of feel like I need to wrap this series up, this is the part where I've not looked really closely before. So studying it has been good for me. So in Genesis 42 and 43, there are three brief appearances of Jacob. And that's what we're going to look at tonight, just these brief appearances. And it is a journey or a journey toward letting go. So we're going to run with that theme tonight. I don't know if I've shared this before or not. I've got a youth minister friend who, I'll share his youth minister fail. He had a class with the youth group, and he thought, we'll do a trust fall, as an illustration. And so he talked one of the girls in the youth group into being the one who's going to fall. Well, it was hard to convince her to. She was really not going to do it. He convinced her, we're going to catch you. You're not going to fall. And so she finally got to the point where she'd stand up on something, and fall backwards and just trust that they're going to catch her. And high school boys, they let go. She hit the floor. She was okay. It was a hard landing, but she was okay. And that was one of those totally ruined his class. The whole point he was going to make, he's like, well, good grief, what are we going to talk about now? It actually probably made a pretty good point, because isn't that life? It's full of hard falls. Trust or don't trust, life is full of hard falls. But you got to let go. You got to get to a place where you're not clinging so tightly, and you can trust, knowing that hard falls are going to come, but you still got to trust, and that's hard to do. It's hard to let go. It's hard to let go when you age. You're not ready to lose that part of your life, that function, that role you had, that relationship. You're not ready to lose that. But it's coming, right? It happens. You can't control it. Parenting, we're not ready for our kids to leave the nest. Are you ever ready for that? Not ready for that. Some of you are going, well, maybe. But you probably remember when you weren't ready for them to cross the street, or climb a tree or leave your sight. You're just not ready. You're not going to let go. I'm a worrier. I struggle with worry, and I'm not ready to let go of that. I'm not ready to quit worrying. You've heard it said before. I'd rather worry than pray. Somehow we get it in our mind that worrying is going to do something, and I go to it over and over again, and I just can't let go of it. I just worry it to death, like worrying is going to stop my worries from happening. We keep such a tight grip on things that are never really in our grip. They're never there. We never had control. It's not in our control. But we just hang on to it. So I think one of the things God does with us as we grow is take us to a point of trusting Him. Not trusting that hard falls aren't going to happen. Trusting Him. Knowing it's not in our control. So we're going to look at these three scenes. The first scene is a hardened old man. It has been more than 20 years since the last time we talked about Jacob. It's been a couple of weeks for us. 20 years have passed since Jacob lost his son. Of course, we know Joseph is alive in Egypt. A lot has happened in 20 years. But Jacob, he's 20 years after having lost his favorite son. And on top of that, it's famine. We're about, remember the years of plenty and then the years of famine in the Joseph story? Well, this is about somewhere in the first 2 years of that famine. So we're 20 years into grief, 2 years into famine. And we made a pretty crusty old man. Genesis 42, verse 1. When Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" He said, "Behold, I've heard that there's grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there that we may live and not die." You can hear the irritation there. He's sort of irritable, real demanding. This is the first thing we've heard from him since he said, "I'm going to go to my grave mourning. This is permanent grief. I'm never going to get over this." And it seems to have stuck. This is the first thing recorded of him, unless I missed something, as far as I can tell. It's the first thing he said since he was grief-stricken in chapter 37. And it's interesting how people change over time. I mean, you notice how some people over time, they mellow out. Things they used to get worked up about, they're calmer about, they're more relaxed about. And other people, as they get older, they get harder and crustier and angry, maybe even without realizing it. They're just cranky. It's like the years of struggle and hardship and pain and grief have just gotten to them, and they're hardened by it all. You see two different things happening, and Jacob is the latter. He's gotten harder. These 20 years, I mean, the first thing we hear him say is, "Why do you look at one another?" Like, come on. You should know. Do something. We're going to die. Go get grain. You might think, why? You know what? The only hint that we have is that it's grief. That's the only hint we have as to why he's like this, is that it's the pain of losing Joseph. Some of the counseling books and things, I think they would call this chronic grief. Okay, this is not 2 months into grief. This is 20 years later, so hardened by it. It's chronic. It's unresolved. It's a deep sorrow that's got a grip on you. It becomes immortalized. It's just a permanent part of you. It's so important to grieve. And I want to be careful because this is about letting go tonight. And it's really important that when somebody's grieving, we don't say, you just got to let go of that. It's not that easy. You need to grieve deeply and honestly. That's important. When you have a loss in life, that grieving process is important. You got to learn to lament. That's part of what is going to help bring you to a place where you become softer and gentler and more compassionate, more understanding, and get a better perspective on life, is facing that. But if tenderness and compassion is not cultivated in time, it's probably a signal that something's unresolved there, that it's become chronic and permanent in your life. And there's something that needs to happen with that. Jacob's got some unresolved grief. It's coming out in irritability and anger. So he says, go get grain so we will live and not die. Verse 3. So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, be a son of Rachel, his beloved wife. He didn't send Benjamin with his brothers, for he feared that harm might happen to him. Thus the sons of Israel came to buy among the others who came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. So we have another element there. It's fear. And it's saying that he fears that harm is going to come to Benjamin. That's the last of his favorites. He loved Rachel more than Leah. Then of her sons, he's got Joseph and Benjamin. Joseph was his favorite. He lost him. Benjamin's the last of his favorites. And he's afraid that if Benjamin goes into dangerous Egypt, he'll lose him. I'm not letting him out of my sight. Right? That's what parents can identify. I'm not ready. I'm not going to let my baby boy go. But he's not a little boy. You've got something really unhealthy going on in Jacob. I'm not going to let go of my pretty much grown-up little boy. It's not really a fear for Benjamin. It's a self-protective fear, I think. I think that the hints in here is it's a self-protective. I'm not going to let myself feel that again. I'm not going to feel what I felt when I saw that blood on that special robe of Joseph. I'm not going to do that. Not going to happen. Control. Gripping it. I'm going to hang on to my boy. I'm not going to lose him. It's not good for Jacob. It's not good for Benjamin. It's not good for the other brothers. I mean, what are we? You know, your unloved brothers like, oh yeah, we can go to Egypt and die just as long as Benjamin doesn't. It's not good for anybody. Scene 2. Man, he goes off the rails here. So his sons go down to Egypt, except for Benjamin. They go to get grain. They come back. They've got grain. But they come back without Simeon, one of his boys. They come back without him. And if you'll remember the story, they actually encounter Joseph, although they don't know it's Joseph. They don't recognize him. He recognizes them. All they know is he's the Lord of the land. That's what they call him, the Lord of the land. And when they encountered the Lord of the land in Egypt, he finds out, well, he knows, you've got another brother. You need to bring him here. Oh, we can't bring back Benjamin. No, that's the baby boy. You're going to bring him back, and I'm going to keep Simeon here. I'm going to jail Simeon to guarantee that you will come back. I'm going to keep one of your brothers while you go get your little brother and bring him back. This is a guarantee that you're going to do it. Man. So they go back, one more brother short. Chapter 42, verse 29. When they came to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, the man, the Lord of the land, spoke roughly to us and took us to be spies of the land. But we said to him, we are honest men. We have never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. The man, the Lord of the land, said to us, by this I shall know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me and take grain for the famine of your households and go your way. Bring your youngest brother to me. Then I shall know that you are not spies, but honest men. But I will deliver your brother to you, and you shall trade in the land. Now, as they emptied their sacks, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. That's the money that they had paid for the grain. So this is kind of a scary thing. And when they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob, their father, said to them, you have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin. All this has come against me. Then Reuben said to his father, kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you. It's a little bit of, again, a redeeming moment for Reuben, but you can sense things are not good. This is a really unhealthy dynamic. And Reuben's like, good grief. If I don't get him back, you can have my sons. It's got to sort of a point of ridiculousness. But he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm should happen to him on the journey that you are to make, you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol. So there's this angry outburst he's got in here. It's the evidence of this tight grip that he's got. He's going to control. I'm not going to go through that again. I'm not going to lose another favorite son. I would rather lose Simeon than even take the possibility that I might lose my baby boy. Man, Simeon, wow, rotting away in jail. It's so irrational, isn't it? Selfish even. Me-centered. You notice verse 38, you would bring down my gray hairs with Sheol. You hear the my in there? My gray hairs. You would bring me down. It's self-protective fear. I want to just share the Hebrew in here. This is really interesting. I don't know Hebrew, but Robert Alter has a translation of this, and here's the way that he translates this. Me you have bereaved. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and Benjamin you would take. It is I who bear it all. It's bringing out a couple of things. One is you're to blame. I'm putting it all on you. It's there's a hint that even Joseph, which it's on them, but he is putting it on them. You are at fault. Me, I'm bereaved. It's really uncharacteristic in Hebrew to put me at the beginning of a sentence. But in Hebrew, me is at the beginning. It's calling attention to it. Jacob is so focused on himself, what he won't lose. I'm not going to do it. I can't. It's not just in grief, just in life. We have a tendency toward me-centered thinking. It's just natural to kind of think of life as revolving around us. Some of you will remember David Robinson, NBA Hall of Famer. There's a place where he's writing about me-centered thinking in teams, so in sport teams, and how there's this, you get to thinking about me. I'm the spotlight. I want the ball. I want to make the big game. And he said, you actually, you push success away by focusing on what you want. And he applied it to life. He says this, pretty simple, but I think it's helpful. Making life all about us pushes happiness further out of reach. It's counterintuitive. We actually push the joys of life away by trying to guarantee that we keep them. Jacob is going, I'm not going to lose my son. But he's actually pushing away the joys of life by thinking that he can grip it. Grief, come back to that a little bit. And now, again, I want to be clear on grief. Grief is not self-centered. It can become that, though, over time. It's normal in grief that you have a hard time seeing beyond what you're feeling. When you have a big loss in life, suddenly all you can see is what you're feeling in that moment. And this is not one of those shame on you, you shouldn't be so selfish. There's an inward turn that's natural and even important because there's a wound that needs healing. When you've got a loss, you need to attend to that. You can't ignore it. You can't push it aside, say, I'm just going to go on and be other focused in life. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to give any attention to that. You got to deal with that wound. If you don't deal with that wound, if you ignore it, it's only going to come worse. And it's going to harden you. It's going to turn you into the Jacob figure that we're seeing in this story. You got to turn inward in some sense. But even in grief, you want it to be God-centered, not me-centered. There's an inward turn because you're dealing with this wound, but you're attentive to God. And as God comforts you in that and heals you, he brings you to a place where you are a comfort and help to others. So God-centered thinking it's not when you're grieving, you don't think, well, I can't think about my grief. I don't want to be selfish. You need to attend to your grief, but you need to be aware of God who's with you. That's why lament is so important. That's why funerals are important, because we want to attend to the presence of God in the middle of our grieving. It's God-centered. Jacob's grief has become self-centered. He is the center. All it is I'm going to control it. It's like he thinks of himself in a sort of sovereign role. I'm going to ensure with my might that I don't lose anything. But the story isn't over. Scene 3, letting go. Some time goes by. He's not going to let him go back with Benjamin. Okay, so they have grain to eat, so there's nothing really urgent. They've brought back grain. But after a while, things change. Enough time has passed that according to one of the sons, they could have gone to Egypt and returned twice. This is how much time has passed. And now they're getting hungry. Jacob still won't let go. Simeon, meanwhile, rotting in jail. Benjamin, home safe. Genesis 43, verse 1. Now the famine was severe in the land, and when they had eaten the grain that they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go again, buy us a little food." Now I'm going to just kind of tell the story of what happens right here, because I want to come back to this part that focuses on Jacob in a minute. But Judah, this is my paraphrase, he says, "Well, Dad, I hate to remind you, but we're not getting grain unless we bring little Benjamin. It's not happening. And the other fact is, if we don't go, we're all going to die. Something's got to change here." So Judah says, "I will vouch for his safety. And if I don't bring him back, you blame me forever." So finally we get to verse 11. Then their father Israel said to them, "If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits of the land in your bags and carry a present down to the man, a little balm and a little honey, gum, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds." Okay, it's time of famine. We're going to gather up the best that we can in a hard time and send you with some gifts. It's just a practical thing. Perhaps we'll find some leniency and some mercy. Take double the money with you. Carry back with you the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Remember, they found the money they'd paid for grain. Take it back. Take double the money with you. Perhaps it was an oversight. Now, right here, I imagine there was a long pause before he says, "Take also your brother and arise, go again to the man." Take some money, take some gifts, real practical, and take your brother. Then verse 14. "May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your other brother and Benjamin. And as for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved." And I got to be honest with you, in my reading of Scripture, the way I have read that last line, if I'm bereaved, I'm bereaved, I've read that as sort of a phrase of resignation, just kind of a giving up, like whatever, it is what it is. If he dies, he dies. After looking at the bigger picture and really seeing this journey that he's on and seeing what a climactic moment is, I don't think that's a phrase of resignation. I think this is a loosened grip on control that's got to happen. Before, he has said, "No, it's not happening. I will not be bereaved." But now he's recognizing, I don't have that control. I still remember where I was the first time I heard somebody say, "Control is an illusion." I don't like to be out of control. Some of us have issues with somebody else driving, right? You don't have to raise your hand. We don't like to not be in control. But the fact is, even when we're behind the wheel, we're not in control. We just have the sense of control. We have the illusion of control, but we never have it. And now it's like he is expressing what reality is. I can't control whether I'm bereaved or not. There's a loosened grip. And I really believe you can't really live without loosening that grip. You will be joyless, frustrated, not to mention grumpy. You can't live if you don't loosen your hand. And my wife knows I'm preaching to myself. I love verse 14. "May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your other brother, Benjamin." He sends him with a prayer. You hear that? The guy that's saying, "I will not be bereaved." He sends his son, he lets go, opens his hands, and he says a prayer. And can you put yourself in his shoes and just imagine seeing him leave? No, what if I don't ever see him again? What if something happens and I feel it all over again, that same grief that I felt with Joseph? Man, that's a hard place to be. Many of you have been there. You're powerless. I mean, we get text updates, right? They didn't get text updates. There was no texting to say, you still got him? Is he still alive? Still breathing? No text updates. All you can do is watch them leave and sit there and pray. There's just a tremendous lesson there. You can't control what's going to happen. You have to learn to let go, and you do it with a prayer. Because you got a God who hears, a God who can trust, and there's a great deal of peace that comes into your life when you get to that place. I've mentioned Chad Bird a few times, just one of the guys that I'm reading along the way, and he's just got such a great way of putting things, and I just want to share this, what he wrote. We sit in the dirt with Jacob and fix our eyes on the horizon. We place ourselves under the mighty and merciful hand of a compassionate God. We wait, we hope, and we trust that no matter what happens, we do not really sit there alone. Not alone. I got a God I can trust. I let go, and I look to God. Now, this kind of, here I'll go. I'm going to have to try hard not to cry again this week. Man, these are tough things. The guy writing, it's one thing to read that and to say, okay, he's good with words. Within a matter of months, he lost his son, 21 years old. It was an accident. And he wrote after that, and he said this, I don't have it on the screen, but he said, in writing about losing his son, he said, yet as I sit here in my grief, alternatingly weeping and reminiscing and praying and giving thanks, I ever hold before my eyes the one who will bear me through this hardship. So, I trust. Sometimes there's a hard fall. It happens even when you trust. So as you let go and as good times come and hard times come, you just got to learn to trust. So letting go, this phrase, it's not just resignation. It's not just, just whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Letting go is learning to trust God. It's learning to say, I can't control what's going to happen, and there's probably going to be some hard things that happen, but I know there is one who is with me, who loves me, who is good, who is faithful to his promises, and I can trust him. And I'm going to keep my eyes fixed on him. And that's why we come back to the cross over and over again, because in the middle of a world where things tragically happen and where so much evil and heartache happens, in the middle of it is a cross that says, this is the extent of my love for you, and this is how far I will go to bring you to myself. You can trust I will do what I say. So you just keep your eyes fixed there, and you hang on to that. And there's a great deal of peace in that. Church family, if you got something heavy on your heart tonight, we need to pray together. Let's do it. If you're not a Christian, you want to put your faith in the Lord Jesus, be baptized into him, I invite you to come to the front while we stand and sing.